I've lost all my those reactions. It's fine. I'm sure we can work it out. Yeah. Do you want to tell me a little bit about kind of your experience as, your experience with Christ? I guess is that a
yeah, sure. So I mean, I probably a lot like you. I grew up in a culturally Christian household as well, and I kind of just went along with it all growing up. Like you're kind of spoon-fed beliefs, and you say they're your beliefs, but you get to a certain age and you realize those aren't actually my beliefs. This is what has been fed to me. And so, like looking back on my life, I would definitely say like I was not a Christian, even though I would say I was a Christian. I was not a Christian. Like my life didn't show it. I didn't, I don't think I genuinely believed the things like deep down, and so I kind of hit a stage. I started to question like coming out of high school, this is the typical.
That's a common
thing,
age. Yeah.
So, and I kept going. I started falling into more of the agnostic camp, and I just, for a while, I didn't really care to know, or I just didn't see the utility in it all for a while. And I kind of became a pothead for a while, and like while I was going to college, and I don't know. Yeah. And so from there, it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago that I kind of started to question things a little bit deeper. And I realized like, firstly, I came to the conclusion that, of course, like you said, it's really an important question because it does affect our lives like so much. And I did realize that, I had to address truth. Like truth exists, or it has to exist. And so either the statement that God is real is true or it's false. And I decided that I'd put actually like some more effort into like researching and learning about that stuff. All the while, because simultaneously, as I was like becoming more of an atheist throughout this time, simultaneously, I was like starting to come to the belief that I think I was following true atheism's inevitable like fundamental beliefs as I kept thinking about it more and more. And that is that I could not justify a reason for like genuine morality to exist.
Kind of like in an objective sense, independent from any minds kind of thing.
Right. And so from that, I actually was like starting to adopt a view that, everything's just matter in motion, and everything is really like a hierarchy of power and wealth, which is really just more matter. But like ultimately the people at the top live a better life, and the people on the bottom get used, right? And so that's kind of the view that I was starting to adopt, and I was actually starting to believe that and follow that, and start to think of how I can start climbing my way to the top. Like if there's no morality, my number one goal needs to be to get to the top, like inevitably, right? If that's the truth, like that's not even like really a purpose to life, because there is no purpose, but that would be
like a goal.
Like the self-created purpose.
Did you have and sorry if interrupting you, like
no, you're good.
Did you have kind of moral intuitions about the experience of the people on the bottom and the experience of the people on the top, did you like the idea that there was kind of wealth inequality? Would wealth inequality have been acceptable if you were on the beneficiary end of that wealth inequality?
I didn't at the time really see it in the scope of morals.
Mm-hmm.
Although, like, I will say, inside of me, I like kept thinking, like, as I was thinking these thoughts, I'm like, what can I do to get ahead of these people, right? Something inside of me was like, okay, that's weird. Why are you thinking that? But
Mm-hmm.
like, then I would keep going down it, and so I guess I didn't really see a morality with it. I just saw that's the way it is. Either I was going to end up on the bottom,
Right.
on top, or somewhere in between, and that's just where I needed to go.
Would it be fair to say that you weren't kind of motivated by any sort of moral system? It was more that there was an outcome that would be beneficiary to yourself that you strived for, and it wasn't like a moral deed that you were trying to undertake. It was advancing your own wealth, and then obviously by extension the quality of your life, your health, the health of your family. You mentioned that you're married. I don't know if you were married at the time, or if you knew, or if you were in relationship with anyone. I mean, even your family would benefit if you were wealthy. So the appeal of that definitely makes sense. I just wasn't sure if there was any kind of moral sense that was driving your actions, or if because it sounds like what you're saying is you didn't have anything to ground morality in, so morality kind of almost dissolved in front of you. If I'm ever at any point miscategorizing you or putting words in your mouth, please correct me, because that's not my goal.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, you're totally on it. Morality was just dissolving, and I was looking at everything from a purely material view, and there was no purpose, no morality, none of these non-material things that was driving these thoughts of mine. And so one of the first things that I kind of started looking around me at was how easy it was for people to gain power through manipulating people through beliefs, religion specifically. And so that was kind of like, over the period of like probably a month after that, I knew like that was going to be my way to the top. Like if I was going to do something, I was going to go through that and manipulate people's beliefs and climb my way to the top of the hierarchy, or at least get myself higher. I didn't want to be where I was. And so that was kind of right about where I think, like I said, I'm Christian, and I think that is the position I believe I got saved from. And it was right after about a month of starting to follow that and pursue that ultimately I do think that now that morality, essentially that really, I'm going to fast forward through all of that. And my position is now that I think morality and purpose and truth, all of these non-material things do exist, and that Christianity is the best way to explain the existences of these things.
Thank you very much for explaining that, by the way. That was really clear. Is the need for an objective morality, a morality that is grounded within something, besides, say, people's opinion, is that kind of what really swung you in the direction of, you mentioned you were an atheist at this point, so you were either of the belief that no gods exist, or that the positions arguing in favor of a god existing were unconvincing, somewhere on that spectrum. Was it, what was it that convinced you that a God does exist? Was it being convinced that morality does exist, or did that happen kind of the other way around?
For me, it was as I kept thinking, like the further I got along in that month-long period, like I was saying, I just kept getting these like, dude, what are you doing? Like, this is evil. Even though like I didn't think that necessarily, but like at the same time, there was this inner dialogue going on. And so I began to ask myself, and I began to ask myself, okay, well, does morality exist? Like, why am I having these sort of, why am I having these thoughts that morality exists? Why do I live inconsistently in the rest of my life as if morality exists? Why do I think it's morally wrong for someone to steal something from me, or to hurt a baby, or to do these things, right? Like, why am I living inconsistent with that belief that there's no morality? Why do I have that in me? Why do other people have that in them? And so I began to ask that more and more. And that's kind of like the direction that slowly took me out of that.
Right. Can I echo back what I think I'm hearing?
Yeah, definitely.
You had kind of an objective kind of morality didn't exist for you. So kind of moral reasoning wasn't something that was accessible kind of either. So you proceeded down a path, or began to proceed down a path that was going to be beneficial for you, especially if successful, very kind of beneficial for you, which went against, let's say, your moral code now. It would be a breach of what your moral code is now, I would imagine. And as you progressed down this path, or began to progress down this path, you did have kind of some moral intuitions almost crop up. These ideas that what you're doing is wrong. It's actually wrong to steal from people. It's wrong to kind of intentionally cause someone else to suffer so that you can gain. And that began you down kind of a journey of exploring, well, does morality exist? And if it does exist, kind of what's it grounded in? All of these kind of questions about morality. Can I ask a question about that? If, let's say that you had been exploring morality at that time, and you found a way to kind of ground morality in something that didn't require a God belief, do you think you would still be an atheist and would just be using this different moral system to reason?
I think it's definitely possible, for sure. Yeah, if I had found something else. Yeah.
Can I ask that question? Like, let's say that you and I were talking today, and or you were doing some more research in like a year from now, and you came across something that grounded morality in something that didn't require a God belief. Does your confidence that the God exists go down at that point?
Yeah, it would certainly start to raise questions, and raising the possibility that morality doesn't have to exist because of God. That would raise questions and definitely cause me to pursue elsewhere.
Do you believe that morality could exist and a God not exist, or that
right
morality?
Now, I'm not convinced.
Right. So if morality exists at all for you, by necessity, a God also exists.
As far as, I know.
Cool. That's, I mean, I just want to make sure that I'm talking about something that's kind of relevant for you. I speak with people occasionally, and they might say, I didn't discover the evidence until I was already a Christian. And then I might ask them, if they found out that all of their evidence was bunk, would they still be a Christian? And they say yes, which is fine. But it means that I don't really want to talk about the evidence then. It seems like a waste of everyone's time, if that makes sense. It's not kind of core to the belief, where morality sounds like it's core to your one.
Definitely, yeah. I think it's certainly there.
Could I ask what convinced you that morality does exist then? And if it's not too much effort, because I know it's a hard word to define, could you define morality as you're using it?
Yeah. So I mean, ultimately, I'll start with the first one and then try to work the second one.
I'll try not to double barrel question you anymore.
No worries. So the first thing ultimately was, as I was beginning to like look into morality and try to learn more about this and like understand what could be out there, right? What kind of options that people have put forth in the past, right? Essentially, I found that every argument that I read ultimately boiled down to a form of relativism, and that I don't think relativistic morality would account for genuine morality. Like, it wouldn't be genuine morality at that point, right? Anytime you have some form of relativism, it's this person saying this is moral, or essentially, I believe it boils down to, again, that idea that everything is matter in motion, and that this set of people is chemically reacting one way and saying this is moral, while this set of people are chemically reacting another way. Their brain is firing a different way and saying this is morality, and they're fundamentally opposed.
There can't be differences of opinion in morality.
Right. Otherwise, morality doesn't really exist. It's really just this person thinks that, and this person thinks that.
So how did you go from because I can understand how that would look in a relativistic sense. How did you go from that? Because my perspective is we do live in a world in which people do disagree on moral issues. How did you get to there definitely is a thing called morality that exists kind of either metaphysically, abstractly. There's like Platonic morality, which is it kind of exists as a thing that other entities strive towards. How did we get to morality definitely exists, and now we need a place to ground that?
For me, that was the idea that best fit the evidence that I saw. I see every single human being on this planet subscribes to morality. There's not a single human on this planet that doesn't know good from evil, and then fundamentally use that to make judgments that affect their lives and the lives of others. So every single human essentially has this idea of morality. It's there, and I believe, I kind of forgot where I was going with that, but essentially, I got the idea.
Could morality be something that is shared by all kind of humans, and all of us agree on something, and yet still kind of just be an opinion that everyone agrees with?
Yes, but then that's where I go back to it's all matter in motion, and ultimately I believe nihilism is a more correct worldview, right? Like if morality as a substance does not exist, and that this morality is just there, this pattern of thought that's controlling humans, we're all matter in motion, there's still no purpose, there's still no anything. I find myself falling more into nihilism. I also, now, for the record, I also believe that my previous atheistic beliefs, like, that I explained originally as I was approaching Christianity, I also believe that was living inconsistently as well. And I believe that nihilism would have been a much more consistent way to live
It
with
would have
that
been
belief.
more in line with your values kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
More in line with like how I was seeing the world.
Right.
And so, yeah.
So what kind of things, because I think if I heard you correctly, the idea that we all kind of just agree on what morality is, but it's still kind of subjective. That didn't fit the world, and an objective morality did fit the world better. Is that did I understand you correctly?
Well, I suppose I always thought that there is a possibility that morality is something that just humans all collectively agree on. But like I said, I think it results in one of two worldviews, that either there's a grounding for that objective morality, or it ultimately collapses into nihilism. And that's kind of like my two choices that I felt like I had. And I think at that point for me, it comes down to a little bit of utility and maybe just the fact that I don't want to believe in nihilism. But yeah, I think that's kind of where it came to me at that point, is when I realized that it could be something that we all collectively just agree on, and that sure, everything is matter in motion, and there is no purpose, there's no morality, there's no genuine truth. I think that ultimately just collapses into nihilism, and I don't really care to go in that direction as far as my personal beliefs. So,
can I echo back what I think I'm hearing you say? That you were kind of at an impasse, and you didn't kind of disregard even the remote notion that morality could be subjective. Even if we all kind of agreed on it, it could be grounded in nothing less than that's how we're born. We're born with a desire to help people who are struggling. There's just something in us that pulls us towards it. But that's not kind of ultimately good in kind of a real grounded binding sense. It's luck of the draw, basically, if we all feel that way. And if someone is born and they don't have moral intuitions, what really is kind of mandatory for them to adhere to? What do they have to do? Nothing really. If we're all kind of, if there's no ultimate capital P purpose, and there's no ultimate capital M morality, what is it that's handcuffing these people to doing the right thing? And when looking at a world like that, that seems to lead to nihilism, where if we have a true grounding for morality, there's a standard by which all are held accountable, and these objective moral duties, to borrow from William Lane Craig, genuinely do exist. Because there is a morality that people have to adhere to. I understand that one of those is a lot more appealing. Definitely, even for me, I understand that's very, very appealing. Does that mean that it's true?
No, I certainly don't think that means it's more true just because I want something else to be true. The one thing I will say is that I think it's easier to believe on the other side to that there is capital M morality, purpose, all of these things, because the evidence, my observable, what I observe, I do believe it's just as easy to see how that fits in with Christianity, or maybe if we haven't gotten that far yet, with an objective morality and purpose.
Right. Again, I want to make sure that I'm representing you correctly. So if apologies for repeating you all the time.
No, you're good.
At this kind of impasse, it looks just as likely, based on kind of the evidence that you've got, that morality is a subjective thing that is, just people's opinion, and that it is actually grounded in something, and people have something within them that leans them towards this fact of what morality is. Both of those look kind of equally likely at this point. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think so. When I'm presented both sides, I think the simplest and most obvious answer is to go towards the existence of morality, purpose, all of these things. Mostly based on the existence of I think this existence of the ultimately like the what's the right word? It's like, I'm gonna butcher this, but like how old the Judeo-Christian, Muslim, whatever, this thing that created morality, right? As far as like, and gives like genuine justification to it. As far as it goes into the past, I felt like that was the simplest explanation, the easiest thing to fall into over nihilism. Does that make sense? It was like kind of like an Occam's razor type thing. Like I felt like that was easier to say existed. It was the simpler answer than saying nihilism existed.
Can you explain to me what it is about that is simpler? And with specific focus on kind of more likely to be true, because I think we can have a simple belief that's not true, but I do appreciate that the more complicated an explanation, the less likely it is, because obviously all of these points need to be right.
Yeah, I think ultimately that there is a justification for morality that spans back from this God interacting with humanity, interacting with this creation that he made for a purpose, and gives the grounding in these things. I think that was a lot simpler than trying to come to the conclusion that even though we see all these things and we see evidence that they exist throughout centuries past, I think that was easier to follow than following nihilism. Like it just seemed like there was more evidence towards in that direction. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to say?
Let me repeat back what I think you're saying.
Okay.
Because there is kind of a history, even if it's just within different cultures. So obviously within Islamic culture, they have the Quran, and I think they kind of lean on the Old Testament a bit as well. With Christianity, you have kind of Christian cultures that go back a bit. You have obviously Jewish cultures that go back further. You have Buddhist cultures with a different kind of blend on morality. Hindu cultures with their versions of morality. And because as we look back in time, we see cultures centered around a God belief with an explanation that morality comes from that entity, it seems more likely we can just kind of accept that as a package, as a one item package, versus that morality seems to exist, but it technically doesn't, but we still behave that we do, and here's why. And that looked like individual reasons that we all needed to be accepted on their face, as opposed to, let's say, Christianity, which is a prepackaged one item claim.
Okay.
Is that a fair summary?
I think that's fair. Yeah, it's the history of this grounding in morality has been around for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can things be kind of around for a long time and the kind of explanation for their source and their cause be incorrect?
Yeah. Certainly. I mean, we have lots of examples of that for sure.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that. What is it about this that makes it more likely in the face of obviously lots of ancient sources getting details of the world wrong?
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, it wasn't a very tight question. I'm really sorry. We
No, you're
see
good.
we see examples of ancient cultures getting things right. We see examples of ancient cultures getting things wrong. We're talking a lot of these cultures are predating things like scientific discovery and a lot of things like that.
Right.
Explanations for how we operate, no psychology, no evolution, no bio, anything like that. Some people have made an explanation about how the world operates based on how they interact with it. Fair enough. And sometimes that's right and sometimes that's wrong. What is it about God being the source of morality that makes you think it's more likely to be right?
Well, I think because I think the difference between those things is that when these past cultures have made assumptions about the world and how it really is, it's always ultimately been, or like the examples you gave me were assumptions on the material world, right? They were leaning into how the world was materially.
Sometimes, right? I think, are you familiar with some cultures that have kind of animism and that, you know, trees and rocks and everything have spirits within them? That doesn't seem material. And yet I think we would probably agree that that's not likely to be true.
Okay. All right. But I guess what I was trying to get at is more, I don't think from the material world we can extract a meaningful way to obviously disprove these things, right? And so I don't think the equivalence is quite the same as far as whether these historical religions were correct about their interpretation of the world. Maybe.
Sorry. If you had kind of something to add there, that would probably help, because I'm not sure that I fully understood that last bit.
So you're asking if essentially if these historical religions have been wrong about some things, right? Why can't
Yeah,
they be wrong about others?
if cultures have been mistaken and correct, let's not paint it one way. They've been right about some stuff. So it's not a one way. It's not like you've got 1,000 examples of no and you're cheering for a yes. There are yes examples and there are no examples. What my question is how did you determine that they were in fact correct about this as opposed to being incorrect about this? And if that's something,
I guess I don't have an answer right now. Yeah.
And that's fine. You're not obligated to answer. Maybe it's something that you'd like to think about, and we can kind of talk about a little bit further, you know, at another time, or you know, there's no obligation
here.
Having
another discussion if you wanted to, for sure. Give me things to think about, and
of course, and vice versa. Yeah, lots of fun. This is why I like having these talks. Would you be comfortable kind of providing a definition of morality? This is why I don't ask double barrel questions, see?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I can like give a definition and then commit to it necessarily, but I can give like my best shot at it.
Look, how about we do that? And if it's something that you're not happy with, that can be something else that you want to kind of reflect on. And then yeah, we could definitely pick that up in a second chat, because again, morality is a tough one, man. This is the first talk I've got to have about morality. People don't usually go there, and I think it's a really strong reason to believe that a God exists. It's probably stronger than a lot of the other reasons that I hear. So it's because it's so complicated. It's because it's so kind of technical and and we're talking about something that exists kind of abstractly, and depending upon your response to the Euthyphro dilemma, either exists independently or as part of God. It's complicated, man. You shouldn't be able to just hip fire a response to this.
Cool. Well, I'll give you my definition based on my current belief, and that is God exists independently of anything material, anything. He's the only independently existing thing or being, right? And morality flows from his existence. That is, morality. It's wrong to steal because that's against the character of God. God doesn't steal. It's wrong to murder because God doesn't murder. And that's how I would view morality.
Is your definition of morality tied to the existence of a God? Have you defined morality in a way that if the God doesn't exist, your version of morality also doesn't exist?
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Right. If that's the case, how would you explain kind of moral behavior that you perceive to be moral behavior if hypothetically the God doesn't exist? Why would people engage in otherwise moral behavior if the God doesn't exist and there is no absolute?
Coming from the other side, as if everything was just matter and motion. There is no God. There's nothing.
Yeah.
It's all material, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, ultimately, I think it comes down to, like I said, everything's matter and motion. It's natural selection playing out. My understanding of it would be that certain groups of people, of living things have evolved certain patterns of thought that constrict their behavior to function amongst other living things that have also developed these patterns of thought to work together to provide more reproductive success, the greater chance for reproductive success. And that's where I think it ultimately comes down to nihilism, because once you realize that everything is, if you realize that everything is matter in motion, and you cognitively know that, then what's the point of living? What's the point of existing, right? Like, why would we want to? Why, like, you can't really answer pleasure, because again, that's just a set of chemicals firing in your brain, and it's not really good or bad. It just is. And I don't think there really is any reason to live or exist or enjoy or do anything.
Did you not enjoy things when you were an atheist?
Oh, I certainly did. That's why I think I was living inconsistently.
Because you enjoyed things and
had morality and adopted some sort of sense of purpose.
Yeah. So, but that might not be like a capital P purpose. It might just be like a lowercase p purpose.
At that time, yes, I was creating my own purpose. As the Christian would like to say, I was idolizing myself.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you find the current model that you have of kind of purpose and morality and everything like that more rewarding, more fulfilling?
Yeah, I do, certainly.
Do you think that had any impact on you being convinced that it's true? Would we agree that having an outcome that's kind of more appealing, more desirable, more comfortable, doesn't make it more likely to be true?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. I would love to have like $1 million in the bank right now. It'd be great, but the odds of it probably not in my favor. And that's okay. That doesn't mean that I definitely can't have $1 million in the bank right now. It just wouldn't be for me a reason to think that it's likely the case.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I've actually really enjoyed kind of the talk. I would really love to kind of explore more the idea of how we could determine that these ancient sources are actually correct about morality. That'd be a really cool one. I think your definition of morality was totally fine, by the way. It was really good. Yeah, it made sense. It was coherent, consistent with kind of the character of God as I understand it. This kind of God of classical theism, who is infinite, limitless, whose nature kind of dictates the world, I guess, including kind of morality.
His only limit is himself.
Yeah.
His own existence.
Yeah. Very fun idea to explore. Is that something that you'd be happy kind of us ending the talk now, spend a bit of time kind of reflecting on that, and we can revisit that another time?
Yeah, I think that would be good.
Yeah, brilliant.
I would appreciate that.
Yeah, cool.
I've enjoyed the talk though. Thank you. I appreciate taking the time. And
good. I'm glad. Look, like I said, I don't like when people just kind of fling shit across the aisle. People don't talk to each other enough, and I've had a really great time kind of talking to you and exploring this belief with you, which is much more fun for me. So why would I not have more talks like this? So I'm glad you had a good time as well, Colin. And yeah, it'd be really great to kind of catch up with you again. We have each other's information. We can kind of reach out and discuss more. Cool.
Awesome.
Do you have any questions for me or anything like that? Also,
I mean, it probably doesn't like follow the flow of this conversation, but like just out of curiosity, how would you define like weak atheism to be? Is it just like, does that mean something like you believe that you subscribe to atheism, but you're not like, you're kind of like between agnosticism and atheism? Is that?
Yeah, so I consider agnosticism and atheism to be kind of two separate planes. Agnosticism talks about kind of knowledge, things that you know, things that you don't know.
Right.
Where atheism and theism talk about belief. Yeah, so strong atheists would say things like, there are no gods. Gods do not exist, right? Depending upon the God claim, I might adopt a strong atheist view. It would need to be really well defined, clearly falsifiable. Zeus, I think, doesn't exist. We know where the thing that Zeus does comes from. We don't need Zeus. Where with a god of classical theism or any of the, you try many characteristics, hard to falsify. So hard to kind of definitively say doesn't exist. So weak atheism for me is that people propose a god, explain to me kind of why they believe that God exists, and I don't find their reasons, at least so far, compelling for me to believe. I haven't spoken to everyone. I haven't heard every God concept. There could definitely be a God that exists that that was a little bit loose phrasing. There could potentially be a God that exists that doesn't have a religious institution on the earth right now or ever. That is
like
true.
A deistic God, kind of like
separated.
I
fall into a camp with deism where that sounds like to me a God whose existence is you couldn't discern its existence from its non-existence. For a deistic God, that's the problem I have with that one. It's that unfalsifiable nature of it. And I tend not to adopt positions that I can't discover that I'm wrong about. Otherwise, I might be trapped forever in a belief that's false. I hope that answers your question. It was a good one.
Quick question. Can you discover that you're wrong about your current belief?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
How?
Which one?
Weak atheism.
Weak atheism. that would require me to kind of discover. So let's say that my confidence that a God exists would go up if I had some kind of like transcendent experience with this God. But that wouldn't be a good reason for, say, my friend to be convinced that the God existed. It'd just be kind of, it would increase my confidence. Things about our universe which appear to be kind of naturalistic, if we discover that they was false. I don't know if you've heard the Precambrian bunnies thing. What would I think it was Huxley? Might have been Huxley. No, surely not. I'm confusing people in history. It doesn't matter. Someone will correct me, surely. That it's what would reduce my confidence that evolution is true? Really complex beings from a Precambrian era, so like fossils of bunnies, right? We didn't expect there to see complicated beings like multiple cell systems at that period of time, right? So if we saw that, that would really shift my perspective on evolution. There's also, there's multiple kind of independent beliefs that I hold that either I've arrived to separately but connect with my lack of belief or my absence of a belief in a God. And there's also positive evidence in favor of theism that have reduced my confidence. So I can kind of attack it from both sides. Either its core proposition is false
and inductive.
Correct. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. Well summarized, much more aptly than me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, do you know what kind of evidence like would be kind of like you gave the example of the bunnies, right? Do you know what kind of evidence could exist out there for you to begin to deduce?
So Christianity is kind of a tough one. Like if we had some strong evidence that, say, a resurrection occurred, what would qualify as that? Yeah, the period of time that it's set in makes it hard, right? No kind of video cameras. I wasn't born then. It's hard for me to kind of examine that kind of stuff. That's why I kind of the first kind of intuitive place that I went is this like transcendent experience with a godlike entity, preferably not alone. Preferably with someone from, another culture, different gender, who's going to just infer this based on their worldview. And if we land on something kind of similar of what that experience is like, my confidence would go up. My understanding is that this is within the reach of most of the God concepts that I've been proposed. So I don't know if I don't think I'm asking for anything absurd. Saul got this, although the people who he was with, Paul got this, and the people he was with didn't see anything. So I don't even think a Damascus Road experience would get me. Okay. Maybe it would. It would probably bump my confidence up, but not as much if, say, someone was with me as well who saw it. That would.
Well, they certainly heard. They experienced something. It wasn't nothing.
Are we talking Acts or Paul's description?
It was Paul's description that I forget. I conflate the two. Which one was it where they just heard something? They saw the light, but they didn't actually see Christ.
My understanding is that Paul saw a light and heard a voice, but didn't actually see like a figure, a body, and that the people that he was with saw nothing.
Okay, but they heard something.
Maybe.
I think they heard something.
Your understanding of what the text actually says is likely to be better than mine.
I'll have to double check though.
I'm more familiar with the Gospels than with Paul's letters, unfortunately.
Gotcha. Okay. And then I just have like one more question. I'm curious. So you said you have a lack of a belief in God, right?
I am without belief in
Without
God. It's
belief, right,
probably it's the one that's going to be less likely to get other atheists yelling at me.
Okay. So do you think that that atheism is in general not a belief?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that my belief system is atheist. I would say that my belief system is more probably skepticism is probably more of how my worldview is shaped.
Okay.
I find that things like humanism, feminism, atheism, all of these things just kind of flow from that.
Okay.
But yeah, that's not I don't wear kind of a mental badge that says atheist. It's a cliff note. Yeah.
So you would agree that atheism is a worldview, not a lack of a worldview?
No, I don't think atheism is a worldview.
You don't?
No, I've spoken with atheists who disagree with me fundamentally on many things that I think are kind of as core to me as they could possibly be.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think the diversity in the group is too high. I think earlier when it was a bit smaller, you might have been able to kind of make that case a little bit cleaner, but I don't know what the tenets that they would agree on would be.
Well, maybe I should put it this way. Do you think there's lots of subcategories of atheism now, right? Like types of atheism you could group them into?
Yeah, so I tend to go weak atheists, strong atheists being the split, but I find those should be subgroups of skepticism, which is more important to me than if I could discover that a God exists and retain my skepticism, I'd stay a skeptic and no longer be an atheist. Where there are people in the world who, if they had that experience and were able to change their mind and weren't so doxastically closed by it, they would become a theist, but skepticism wouldn't even be something that they would it's not something about them that they value. It's not a way by which they approach the world. So there are some people who are kind of atheists as their identifier. That's not me.
Okay. So you don't believe that you hold a worldview?
Oh, I hold a worldview. My worldview,
gotcha.
My larger one would be kind of like the skepticism.
Gotcha.
But humanism probably informs my actions more than skepticism would. But I can't derive humanism without skepticism for me.
Gotcha.
Without it just being humans are valuable because they're valuable kind of thing.
Cool.
I hope that makes sense.
I just wanted to kind of get a little bit more of a feel for
great question.
Where we are together and,
of course,
and where our conversations are coming from.
Yeah, brilliant.
So, okay, awesome. Yeah, I really appreciate this time again. So
yeah, me too. Thank you very much for showing up. I understand that obviously it's nighttime over there, so yeah, it means a lot. Enjoy the rest of your night.
All right, I will. Thank you. And you enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye.